Coming up, we take to the skies with Malaysian Airlines and business class from Perth to Kuala Lumpur. Welcome back to Finding G-Spots. So, my wife and I flew to Kuala Lumpur just before Christmas. In fact, we actually flew on Christmas Day and we left from Perth. It was a very early morning flight, leaving at about 2:30 in the morning. The flight was delayed by a little bit, but as you'll see later on, we still arrived on time in KL. Now, it was our first time going to the Aspire Lounge. There is no Malaysian Airlines lounge, but we used the Aspire Lounge. And before I go any further, I just want to thank this gentleman here. I think his name was Luke. Apologies if it's not, but he was really great help there at the Aspire Lounge, very friendly. So thanks to him. And I have to say the lounge was very, very impressive. It was very clean, tidy, and with excellent food. And yeah, look at that view you could see out there. So had a great full bar. So you know, if alcohol's your thing, you can really go to town if that's what you want to do. So yeah, very nice lounge, and definitely gets 4 marks from us. So a very pleasant way to start our business class experience on Malaysian Airlines. So we made it through to the airport, which is, I must say, is also looking quite good these days. They've done a lot of work there at Perth Airport. So the flight time to Kuala Lumpur from Perth is around about 5 hours and 45 minutes. It does vary. It can be as little as 5.5 hours or even a little bit less than that, I think, depending on wind and other conditions. Now, if you want to fly direct to KL and have a lie flat bed, this is pretty much the only airline you can choose. There are other airlines which do fly direct, including budget airlines, but obviously they don't have a lie flat bed. So your only other option, if you didn't want to go with Malaysian, was you'd have to go with someone like Singapore, and then you'd of course have to have a stopover in Singapore, which is not always ideal for everyone. Now, it was about half full. The business class is a 1-2-1 layout. There's 21 seats. And despite booking this about 8 or 9 months ahead, we failed to get the 2 seats in the middle, which would have been better travelling as a couple. Neither of us really wanted to be in the aisle, which is why we both chose window seats a little bit away from each other. And so yeah, for me was not a bad choice for a seat. As you can see the seat here. Now it is a little bit narrow. The Airbus 300, which we took on the way back, was slightly wider. Now you can see it has got a little pocket here. You can put some magazines there as you go out to the aisle bit. And the seats did have a massage function as well, which I tried, and I have to say it was pretty useless. It wasn't that great. And you can control the height of the bed here to fold it flat if you want. Now here's the light function for reading if you wanted it well, and it does have a USB-A charger, but just be wary, there's no USB-C charger, which is the common one these days, so just be wary of that. And as I mentioned, it was around about half full, so it wasn't too crowded at all. So there we were off and away, just delayed by a little bit. I think it was about 20 minutes to half an hour late. Now moving on to the food. Now you did get a few little snacks and a welcome drink, and I didn't include it, but there was also a welcome towel service. Now all I had to eat was an entree chicken satay. My wife ate a little bit more than me. She had everything except for the mains. Now she pre-ordered hers online, which you can do. She pre-ordered a vegetarian dish. So I can't say too much more about the food because I fell asleep. But moving on to the toilet facilities, which I did film before I went to sleep, and I have to say the toilet facilities were nice and clean, no issues, but you know, obviously not as nice as the Emirates service which we took last Christmas. So the main reason that my wife and I go business class is for the extra room and the fact that it does have a lie flat bed. So it was perfectly adequate for us, and I did manage, like I said, to get around about 2.5 hours sleep, I think it was, or close to 3 hours sleep, I think it was. My wife too managed to get a couple of hours sleep too. So yeah, they were reasonably comfortable, the beds. Again, they're not as nice as the top Middle Eastern airlines, but for a medium haul flight, which is always a difficult flight for an airline to put on, do they go with a bigger plane, or do they just go budget and not have lie flat seats? Well, this is the compromise that you get in the middle, and it's not always ideal. But in terms of space, I have to say, unless you're 6.5 foot tall, it was more than adequate for us. So we got safely to Kuala Lumpur Airport, which if you've been to before, you'll know is quite a big airport. And just a little word of warning, they're upgrading their little train services that take you in between terminals. So if you haven't been for a few years, roughly about a year ago, they started to upgrade and replace their trains, and now you have to actually take a bus transfer between the terminals. So just be wary of that if you are travelling to KL. And there we go, we got there, we hired our little rental car for our drive to Penang, and we had a fabulous holiday in Malaysia. And if you check out my channel, you can see some of the lovely places that we went to. We had a really fabulous time staying in a few different areas in Malaysia. So let's go on with our rating section then. So this is how we rated our trip. Starting off with the lounge, the Aspire Lounge in Perth, excellent, 5 out of 5. There is no Malaysian Airlines lounge, but this partnership that they've got with this lounge, it's an excellent facility, great views, great food, drinks and so on. And as I mentioned, the guy there, Luke, I think his name was, great job. Now the lie flat beds, I would probably give them about a 3.5 out of 5. We did manage to sleep. They're not as good as the Middle East Airlines. I think Qatar and Emirates obviously a lot better. And the reason is it's just a little bit narrow lengthwise, like I said, unless you're very, very tall though, you shouldn't really have an issue with them. And you've got aisle access on all the seats, so yeah, pretty good. The flight itself, I'd probably give 4 out of 5. So as I mentioned, we were delayed, but they made up really good ground, and we weren't really that late going into KL at all. I think only a few minutes overtime. So all in all, the flight was pretty good. No real issues. Like I said, I did manage to sleep, and if there was any turbulence, I was certainly unaware of it. I must admit though, I was tired from a long day. So yeah, flight pretty good, 4 out of 5. The food, well, maybe I've been spoiled by the Middle Eastern Airlines, but it was pretty disappointing, to be honest. So much so that I just fell asleep and didn't bother waiting for my main course. I mean, the satay I had was okay. I wouldn't say it was brilliant. My wife thought hers was pretty ordinary as well. Personally, I think they should ditch the dinner service for this flight and substitute a breakfast service about an hour before we land in KL. I think it would be a much better way of doing it, but they didn't even have any chocolate when I asked. So for a business class flight, pretty disappointing with the food. So 2.5. Okay, I thought the staff was a bit of a mixed bag, and I have to say a little bit disappointing as well. It's the first time we've flown Malaysian since 2018, so well before the pandemic. And I have to say my memory of it was a lot better last time I flew. So yeah, a little bit disappointing. I felt like something was going on there. Maybe they were short-staffed or something had happened, but none of the staff seemed really particularly that friendly. So I'm not sure why, but that contributes to my rating of just 3 out of 5. So finally, that leaves me with an overall score of about 3.5 out of 5. So not the worst business class that I've ever been on, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as, say, Emirates or Qatar. They've got a lot of work to do if they want to rival those sorts of airlines. So yeah, I'm pleased to say though, I'll give you a little spoiler alert, the return flight back from KL to Perth was better than this flight. So, but you'll see that when I do the review for that in a few weeks' time. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care out there. If you haven't already subscribed, I would love that. And please check out my great videos of Kuala Lumpur and other places that we visited in Malaysia when we were there. Okay, take care again, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.